Longtime Tesla investor and YouTuber Kevin Paffrath joins us now. So, Kevin, as we take a look at the reaction that we've seen from the street here, I mean, a lot of good to be found in the earnings report itself, but really honing in on some of those warning signs on price cuts, cutting into margins, and some of those incentives as well. Do you think the street has it right in their reaction to this right now?
No, Wall Street never has it right when it comes to Tesla. They, however, are right in the short term, right? Wall Street doesn't care about the robo-taxi. They don't care about AI. They don't care about Dojo. They don't care about full self-driving. The street is right to care about what they care about now, and that's near-term profitability. They care about near-term margin, near-term profit. And what did we hear? Well, we didn't hear, as you mentioned yourself, a date on the Cybertruck. We actually heard they're still testing the Cybertruck, which sort of made me scratch my head too. We didn't hear talk about them actually acknowledge that they are indeed advertising, which is something they agreed to do to sort of help boost the near-term profitability and reduce the need for price cuts. Instead, we potentially had hints of more price cuts coming. So all of the near-term ammunition that really said, hey, near-term profitability might be hurt more is what Wall Street got to say, all right, sell. Long-term, we didn't even get that great of a vision, though, on Cybertruck, which we were really hoping for more color on. And then something that I was a little disappointed on. Don't get me wrong, still happy for Tesla long run here, but something that I thought was really odd was Elon's been talking up Dojo, the supercomputer for artificial intelligence. This is going to be the best supercomputer ever. But then he said, hey, but if we can get our hands on enough NVIDIA chips, we wouldn't even need Dojo. This was, in my opinion, kind of like saying, your girlfriend is the best ever. But if I had my ex back, I wouldn't be with my girlfriend.
I love that analogy there because, I mean, investors really were looking for some clarity and some details here. And it did seem as if Musk was sort of hedging his bets on the cause. I mean, when we talk about FSD, I mean, this is something that started talking about in 2016, still really waiting to see it come to fruition here. And he even on the call called himself, the boy who cried FSD. But he's actually expecting to see that here and talking about seeing that potentially by the end of the year. What should you make then about Musk's promises when it comes to FSD and where we really are in the story and how much that means to Tesla?
Yeah, that's a great argument. It is true. He is a little bit the boy who cried FSD. Look, it is getting better. I use FSD on 2 different Teslas. It is getting phenomenally better at those edge case scenarios where sometimes it feels like it wants to drive you into the wall, and now it doesn't do that as much anymore, which kind of goes from like bad to great. Now it's acceptable. It's getting much better. I'm taking regular drives myself as a user where I'm finding myself more and more taking those drives going, wow, I didn't have to take over once on that drive, which is fantastic. Do I really think we're at that phase, though, where by the end of the year it's going to be at a perfect level? No, we're not going to be at 100%, I think, for a few years. However, Elon Musk did tease something that I thought has real potential, and that's licensing the software to other manufacturers like a Ford or GM. I personally think many of the ADAS softwares, like your adaptive cruise control or your lane keep assist, aren't that great at the Mercedes or Ford or GM. And if they can even just get autopilot from Tesla, Tesla could probably make maybe an extra $1,000, $2,000 of every car the other manufacturers sell. Now that would be a margin, that would be explosive for Tesla margins. I would expect that if as many of the companies that are adopting the NACS, the North American Charging Standard, start adapting even just autopilot, the lane keep and the ADAS on highways and streets, rather than even full self-driving, you could solely from those incremental revenues from other companies, which cost Tesla virtually nothing other than software, so probably 90+% margins, you could probably see the valuation of Tesla double on that alone. Unfortunately, we don't even have a taste of that yet. And so in the short term, it's very difficult for Wall Street to assign any value to that at all because they don't have a taste of, well, how much would that even sell for on a single car at a single manufacturer? But once it happens, it'll happen very quickly. So I remain very long-term optimistic for Tesla. But look, the bears are 100% right here in the short term. The earnings call was a disaster. Elon was probably tweeting during it anyway, and Elon's not really the best spokesperson for talking to Wall Street. Should have had a little bit more focus there on finance, on what they're doing to improve advertising and margin, and really, it's a Wall Street earnings call. Talk short-term in the earnings call, talk long-term at the Tesla events like the AI Day. That would have been better here.
And the thing is, I mean, and you talked about this here, this idea of really sort of having that data that you're now picking up by by licensing what they have with the superchargers. Potentially talked about that OEM for doing the same thing with FSD as well. What is the long game here? Is it Tesla essentially making most of their money and gathering sort of this data from other companies, or relying on this Cybertruck to be the sort of the next level of growth, which he says, it's full of technology, didn't really give us any sort of specs on it at all, or even delivery dates. What's going to be that next growth driver for Tesla?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you're hitting on, because we were always first promised as Tesla investors that Tesla was the best at manufacturing cars and that you want to invest here because the profitability is so large for the vehicles. But now Elon Musk is somewhat U-turning to, oh, well, we could sell the cars for a break even. We'll make money off the software. But take rates for FSD are somewhere under 10%. So we're not even convinced today that FSD and software is really going to be a driver of revenue. So to hear Elon suggest that, well, okay, we used to be a company that focused so much on profitability and manufacturing to, well, that doesn't matter so much anymore. We want to profit off software, is definitely going to give Wall Street some pause, at least in the near term, until we can prove that software profitability. I believe in the long term, yes, we'll have a combination of profit. Even if we just maintain 15 to 25% margins on the cars, we'll still be well above industry average. And if we can layer onto that high quality software, which I think Tesla has, it's not 100% yet, but it's still very good, miles ahead of what anybody else has. Yes, you'll have a combined, very profitable company here. And that's why I'm an investor, not only myself, but also in my fund, my ETF. But beyond that, I have to say, you're right. You're kind of, as an investor in the short term, looking around going, oh, okay, I thought that was the goal. Okay, now this is the goal. And Wall Street doesn't like those pivots.
And I mean, in terms of the amount of breathing room that Tesla has at the moment, as you do have, more of these legacy brands coming in with perhaps cheaper EV options as well, how strong, how dominant do you think Tesla's position is going to remain, at least in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I expect the pie to continue to grow of electric vehicles, but I think the more time goes by, the more folks end up giving Tesla a try. And I actually think some of the biggest investors of Tesla stock are retail. And now what's really interesting about this is when we look at funds specifically, we can see that only about 30% of funds out of the big 7 stocks have an allocation to Tesla at all, whereas about 71% of funds have an allocation to Apple, or somewhere around 60 to 80% of funds have an allocation to Meta, Nvidia, Google, Microsoft. So Tesla's still a little bit of the black sheep, where you've got a lot of very excited retail who love the vehicle, so they invest in the stock. And actually, the more Tesla continues to sell Teslas, the more retail investors I expect you're going to get, which eventually Wall Street will be convinced by. And that's probably where we end up getting real euphoria for the stock, where we could end up seeing more of a Cathie Woodian price direction, where we're starting to look at the $500-600, maybe even the $1,000+ range for the stock. But it's really going to take all of that happening, more retail, leading to finally seeing those software revenues, to finally seeing Wall Street turn and allocate appropriately to Tesla. But in the near term, you've got some headwinds before you're there. I think I may have missed all of your questions, so maybe restate anything if I missed there. Sorry about that.
No, you hit all the bases there. It's a lot for investors to take in. An interesting time, especially in the short term here. Always great to have you on. Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.
Thank you so much.